Hello, fellow midlifers. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm sharing my experience selling one of my rentals, why I bought it, what happened while I owned it, and why I eventually decided to sell it. For those who are new, I'm Jean. I'm sharing what I've learned through my experiences in investing in midlife. The hope is that those who are a few steps behind can learn from my wins, lessons, and mistakes. So I bought this rental property in 2023. I was excited about it because I thought I got it at a good price. It was in an area in central Arkansas, about 40 minutes away from my first rental. I actually got like a 20% discount on the price. On paper, it looked really good, around 8 to 12% cash on cash return when I was analyzing the deal. In hindsight, that was the first mistake. Comparing cash on cash return between different cities rather than from the same city or buy box, as the one rental at a time community calls it. So the first mistake was really that I deviated a little from my buy box and assumed that it was a similar market. I assumed, since my first rental on paper had a lower cash on cash return, that this property 40 minutes away was a great cash flowing property. The first few months of this rental were already not trending well. It took more than 2 months to find a tenant. The second mistake was loosening the tenant criteria a little, because I was getting a little desperate. There was one red flag. This tenant did not pass the credit criteria. My property manager told me that the tenant was willing to give a double deposit in order to make up for the credit criteria. I thought that might be okay, since I thought it would mitigate some risk. Bad decision. The tenant ended up abandoning the place and trashing the place when they left. The deposit was supposedly about $1,000, so the tenant gave double, around $2,000, but repairs amounted to almost $6,000. This was very emotionally and mentally draining for me to deal with, and of course it was also financially difficult. The takeaway from this is that no tenant is better than a bad tenant, and I learned that the hard way. The third mistake was that I assumed my property manager, who managed my rentals 40 minutes away, could also manage this rental. Again, I assumed that the market was homogeneous and someone who could successfully manage a property in one city could manage another one in another city. After the first tenant nightmare, I decided to switch property managers and find someone local within the area. While this helped a little and the next tenant was a better quality tenant, the same problems persisted, things breaking every month. I did have an inspector. I did do an inspection on the place, so I wonder if it was just not that great. I think what it is that it was just not that great. An area and the tenants in that market are just a little harder on the property, as well as this was an older property and everything just continually broke. And so the repairs were constantly draining the cash flow. Almost every month there was just something wrong. Water heater needed replacement, pipe burst, windows were broken, dishwasher needed repair and replacement. I know problems come up and things break, but after 1 year, I realized that 80% of my problems and expenses were from this one property. What looked like a great cash flowing property with a cash on cash return expectation of 8 to 12%, in reality, after recording all the expenses month after month, was really an alligator. So after 2 years of holding on to it, I decided to cut my losses and just sell the property. It took about 4 months from the time it was listed to the time it closed. During that time I was selling it, I realized that I educated myself with countless books on how to acquire a property, but I never really educated myself on an exit, how to sell a property. I was learning hard lessons on the fly about selling a property, and some of the lessons that I learned were, first is that transaction costs were so expensive. As a buyer, I never paid for any commissions, but as a seller, I had to shoulder this. The second is that I also sold it during a time when buyers had more power, so I needed to be a little flexible in covering some of the selling costs. Third lesson was that I didn't know that an FHA buyer was a little bit different. The buyer was an FHA buyer. I didn't think much of it at first, but later on realized that FHA loans are a little different from a conventional loan. The property had to pass certain inspections, and I had to do even more repairs in order to get it into a condition that was acceptable to the FHA inspector. Fourth lesson was that, again, because it was an FHA loan, the loan approval itself took a lot of time. We had to push the closing date out again and again and again because the loan officer kept asking the buyer for more documents. Long closing time meant I had to shoulder all those costs of the property, like utilities, insurance, things of that nature, even while it was vacant and waiting for it to be sold. I was exasperated and came to a point where I wanted to just terminate the contract, as I wasn't sure if it would really close. It did close eventually, but not after me telling them I wanted to terminate the contract if it didn't close by a certain date. And the last big lesson was that I didn't realize depreciation recapture would hit me hard. I mentioned I wasn't making much on this property, and after everything was said and done, it was sold at a loss, so I didn't do a 1031 exchange. But when tax season came, I was surprised that depreciation recapture would be taxed at ordinary income. It was definitely a surprise and had an impact on the taxes that I had to pay. Again, another learning experience for me, or as some investors call it, it's just that idiot tax that you have to pay in the first 5 years of investing. The good news is that since this property was sold, the drama that I face every month has definitely simmered down. Most of the time, I think I made the right decision to sell it, since it was just causing me a lot of brain damage. But sometimes I wonder if I gave up on it too soon and did not give it enough time. What would you have done if you were in my situation? Let me know in the comments. If you learned anything at all from this video, hope you would consider liking and subscribing. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.